Join Doctors Savanah Craig and Ronnetta Sartor as we navigate life beyond graduation. Real conversations about forging our own paths in our early years in our careers. There's a reason it's called practicing dentistry. All right, everyone, welcome back for another round of Beyond Graduation, Season 2. So I am Savanah Craig. With me as always,
I am Ronnetta Sartor, and we are happy to be back.
Today we've got a big topic. We're talking about mental toughness and what that looks like from the dental perspective. Ronnetta, we were chatting before we started recording, and you had a great take on this topic. So share it with the people.
We were just laughing and joking, but it's sort of true as well. My comment to her was, in order to be in dentistry, we have to develop mental toughness, because one of the first things we hear a patient say as soon as we walk in the room before we can introduce ourselves is, "I hate the dentist." And so it's hard when someone hates you and they haven't even met you yet, just based on what you do for a living. So we joke about it. But I think just the industry that we have chosen to be in, and how we have chosen to serve patients, makes it really difficult for us. We're probably one of the most feared professions, just from a historical standpoint, because a lot of people have had negative dental experiences, especially in childhood, that have, as a result, caused them in adulthood or later in life to have dental phobias. And all of those things compound to, the statement that so many patients tell us each day. What's your take on it, Savanah?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's one of the unfortunate ironies of life is that these patients that fear us so much end up needing so much more work by the time they finally get in our chair. And it almost, even on my best day, right? I'm still sticking a needle in somebody's mouth. Like there's just nothing enjoyable. And, you can do all the tips and tricks to make it better. I'm never going to say it's painless. But it's a vulnerable position. Like I hear the patients, I totally get where they're coming from. And it beats me down. It's hard when you're like, give me a shot here to and I do, for every tough day in dentistry, you've got the great ones, and you can walk out of one really hard. I think that's the nice thing about how quickly this job moves is, you can have a really hard time in one operatory and walk over to the next one. It's somebody who's really grateful that, you're there and taking care of them. And I like to, I do sedation dentistry. I like to win over those scared, terrified, difficult patients. That's my own secret, kryptonite, I guess. But yeah, it is a challenge. I think another piece we were talking about is there are just like in society in general, the expectations around dentistry are so difficult, in what we're capable of. What's your take on that? How's that evolved over your career, do you think? Because you've been doing this a lot longer than I. Not a lot, but
Mm-hmm. So, and I know some people may not agree with this statement, but I always lead with telling patients when they ask, how long is something going to last? I always tell them, whether they're a believer or not, my statement to them is, I can't give you something better than what God gave you,
mm-hmm.
in terms of teeth. I can make it look nice, I can make it function very well, um, but what you are given and what I give you, um, the comparison is really tough. Um, there's nothing that I can do that's going to not have any risks. It has risks and benefits to it. So I always try to lead with letting patients know that.
And upkeep, right? That's
Right.
like the other big misconception is, oh, you did it. We're done forever. No.
Mm-mm, no. Like even implants, some
Mm-hmm.
people they come in and they're like, I'm gonna take all of my teeth out and I want to have implants. And I always have the conversation, well, implants require upkeep as well.
Yeah.
You have to come in and sometimes adjustments need to be made, things need to be tightened. So there's no silver bullet or magic pill that I can give them to fix everything. And I think over time, we joke about like mental toughness. Over time, it's not so much that we have to be tough. It's just more so that we learn to communicate and communicate early and thoroughly with our patients, and so that there aren't as many fires after we begin treatment.
Yeah. How do you handle, I think for me at this stage, I'm doing my best to have those conversations, and all of the signs are there that the patient's hearing me. And then, in some instances we get down the line and, you know, they forget, or, oh, I didn't know that you really meant that. And what, in your experience, how do you, obviously you document the heck out of it in your notes, but what, do you have any tips, recommendations on how to check for that understanding, or not to get yourself in this pickle of, I know that we talked about this, but did you hear me?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And I think it's something that in dentistry, um, we all will strive to always be better at.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of it depends on the patient. Every patient is
Fair.
different. Every patient comes with different motivators and different personalities. And part of it is our job to figure out what motivates them, um, what type of personality they are, in terms of like, do they need to know all of the details, or are they that patient that's like, oh doc, I trust you, just do what's best. um, it's tough because when we start to talk about case acceptance and all those things, you don't want to talk too much, but you want to make sure that the patient is informed of risks and benefits so that they can make the best decision for themselves. So I don't have a quick and dry answer for you. I just think there's so many variables, but all you can do is if they forget, just kindly and gently remind them, hey, remember we talked about XYZ may be a complication of this.
Yeah.
Um, and this is how we can move forward to lessen that complication, or these are things that we could do, but this is going to be your homework to make sure that things go how we want them to.
Yeah. All right, I want to play devil's advocate. So we talk a lot, you and I and Dr. Rice and everybody about, getting to know your patients, the personality types, what motivates them. And like I 100% agree that helps with case acceptance, all of these things. But my devil's advocate moment is, one, is that really my job? Two, like when I go to my doctors, they're like, here's the cut and dry, man. do it or don't. But like, why in dentistry are we like, all right, let me understand your entire psychology that you, patient, probably don't even know about yourself, that these are like what's driving you. And I just,
Ooh, I like that.
like,
Yeah.
why do we do this to ourselves?
Well, I think part of it is how we started this whole podcast, right?
Yeah.
We opened by saying if a patient had a choice of coming to the dentist versus like doing something else,
Fair.
they would almost 100% of the time like pick the something else.
Sure.
And so from that perspective, in order for patients to see value in it, it's I believe it's our job to inform them in a way that resonates with what's important to them.
Yeah.
Now, playing devil's advocate, as you would say, um, there's also some accountability that the patient has to take too.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they leave our office, they have to go home and they have to, as you stated earlier, upkeep whatever it is we do.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones that is in control of their diet, and to some extent, maybe their health as well. And so it's our responsibility, but it's also theirs as well. And I think sometimes that's a combo that we should have with the patient too. And I don't know that we always have those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's super interesting. And like, I don't know, my assistants laugh at me all the time, but I stole this from residency. Your mouth, your choice. And I say that all the time. And I'm like, here's the skinny. If you do nothing, this is what might happen. If we do treatment, this these are still things that might happen. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I can, and I think maybe as a society, I don't know if it's social media, I don't know if it's what it is, but, and I would love your take on this, but I think people want, I was just listening to a podcast about like people want definitive answers, and they don't like that medicine and science and dentistry has so many unknowns, and so people want that like social media viral video that's like this, take this supplement. And it was putting in the group chat yesterday that their patient was like, no, I eat cheddar cheese and it cures my perio. Like, I wish, man. Like, I promise you, if I knew that you could do this one thing and it would work, I would tell you. I guarantee, like, but I think that's the hard part about dentistry is there are so many options, one, for every treatment plan. Every dentist is going to be different. The potential outcomes, like, I could not even list them all on a consent form. And then to just the unknown of like, I don't know how you're going to care for this when you go home. I don't know how this material is going to work in your mouth. Like, we're all doing our best. I think people don't like that uncertainty of it.
That's a very, it's very insightful and a very great point. I think my response to that is that nothing in life is certain.
Yeah.
Like I could walk in my neighborhood and get hit by a car. Like,
Yeah.
not saying I want that to happen, but if we look at the risks, like of
Yeah.
it happening, is really
Yeah.
low. But has it happened to some people?
Yeah.
Certainly, it has.
Yeah.
Um, what I will say about medicine and dentistry in general is that we are in a very exciting time because technology and research is at an all-time high, and we're learning more and more every day. Um, and I feel like it's every industry that's out there. Like, we do what we know at the moment, and when we know better, we do
Mm-hmm.
better.
Yes.
And when we know better, we can inform our patients better, and over time, I think in dentistry, outcomes have been better than they have, say, hundreds of years ago. And it's just as things continue to evolve, we can do better. I know it's not an answer that patients or we even like, but it's
Yeah.
just a reality. Um, and sometimes, I know you mentioned social media, but sometimes everything you see on social media, it's only a snapshot of time. So, like, it may
100%.
look perfect on social media, but what did it take to get that shot?
Yeah.
Um, but it is something that I think, especially um, as generations evolve, they're going to be more technology based and AI based than we ever were.
Mhm.
And it's something that in dentistry, I imagine we're going to have to evolve with it or we'll get left behind. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
that's
that's a
something
good
I like.
point. But and I think about this all the time, like the irony of I chose I mean, I always wanted to be a dentist, but like the appeal of dentistry over medicine for me was like, yeah, cavity filling, like A plus B equals C. And the further along I get into this, the less certain I even am, which, like, not that I don't know what I'm doing. I know, but like, I think that makes you a good clinician to be like, there are a lot of options here, man. And this is my best, with what we have now. I had a patient a couple weeks ago ask me, like, you know, some silver amalgams that are now causing fractures in teeth. And I'm like, you know, and they're like, well, how do you know the material you're putting in today is going to be the best material 20 years from now? And I was like, honestly, it probably won't be. And it really freaked the patient out. I was like, oh, let me backtrack. Like, sometimes I'm too honest. But I was like, this is the best material we have in this moment. And I can't offer you the material that's going to be here in 20 years. And that's just sort of it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're either cool with that or you're not. And I don't know what you want from me.
So, what would you say are maybe your top three tips into um, establishing and continuing to build mental toughness?
Oof. I think I think giving yourself grace, um, and finding friends that you can laugh about the ridiculousness of, like, I I put as much, if not more, pressure on myself to do well, to do the right thing for my patients than my patients are probably even aware of. But knowing that, like, this was the best we could do in this moment with this patient in this circumstance, and just letting that go, um, and really trying not to, like, bring it home and dwell on it. I think finding humor in it is the only way you're going to do this career for 30 years. What about you?
I think what you said is very on point. I would say definitely having a team that's there that you could turn to, and you know everyone's on the same page that we want dentistry to be as pleasant as it can be
Yeah,
experienced for our patients, and to just be on board with helping the patients the best way that we can. And like you said, just doing doing our best, and by doing our best, we're giving the best that we can to our patients. And the other part too is, staying on top of the newest technologies and the newest research, and in that way we can offer the best that's available. And by doing so, we don't need to be as tough. It just kind of works its way out.
that's a good point. This was a fun episode. I would love, to hear everyone else's thoughts and experiences, and how you find humor in this wild profession we've all chosen.
For sure. Until
I
next time, friends.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond Graduation. If you enjoyed this week's episode, be sure to share it with a friend. Connect with us on social media, Savanah Craig, DDS, and Dr_Sartor. And remember, you are not alone on this journey.
This episode was sponsored by the Dental Residency Guide and the Beyond Graduation ebooks. These ebooks can be found at ignitedds.com/ebooks.
Thank you so much for listening to Beyond Graduation, brought to you by Ignite DDS and Future Dentists.